I'm Micheline Pitt, and I collect art and collectibles from the 1954 film Creature from the Black Lagoon. It's a really sad, beautiful movie.
Science couldn't explain it, but there it was, alive in the deep, deep waters of the Amazon. A throwback to a creature that had existed 100 million years ago. A woman's beauty, the bait that brought it out of its lair.
I remember being a kid and them handing out Creature from the Black Lagoon 3D glasses, and it was going to be on TV. So that was the first time that I saw Creature from the Black Lagoon in 3D.
The spring's first underwater 3D thrill.
Literally sticking my face against the TV and just, I've never seen anything like it. Like the design, the movement and everything. It was so cool, just a full suit, and it was so heavily shown too. This really interacted with Julie's character and other people in a way that was really interesting because it was almost like a dance. The way it moved in the water and the way it swam, and it was shot in a way that was also really different than a lot of horror movies because you got to see it practically, where everything now is CG, and that kind of connection between those characters is really interesting. It wasn't until years later, through talking with other friends, that I discovered who Milicent Patrick was and her entire story, because it never was told. I started getting some vintage creepy magazines and famous monster magazines when I was younger, and in there you would have behind the scenes photos or promo photos, old images of movies that had came out 20, 30 years prior to that issue being released. When I went to look for the Creature from the Black Lagoon, she never got credit for her design. Unfortunately, it kind of got lost in time that a woman actually designed the Creature from the Black Lagoon and had a heavy hand in creating it from the beginning to end, to being on set, painting the suit, working on the suit on set, which is so sad because she designed the mole people. She was an actress before she was an artist and designer. She was Walt Disney's first female animator ever. She did a lot of groundbreaking stuff. I think that there's a lot of stuff that we don't know about, and I think that it's really unfortunate when people choose to keep something like that to themselves because they don't want other people to see it or have it. I actually have a photo of her working on the creature suit, and that's a photo that's never been released. And actually a private collector owns one of her original sketches that you can see in the background of one of the photos that are in this private collection, which I think also hurts it. You have these private collectors that have all these photos that they somehow got from the studios. They have the original negatives, they have the original pictures, they've never released them. This is a press copy, but there's actually a book coming out called The Lady from the Black Lagoon. It's all about Milicent's story. To this day, as far as I know, there hasn't been another female designer to create a monster, a major entity for a film like Creature from the Black Lagoon. So I'd say the first thing I got from my Creature from the Black Lagoon collection was this old Halloween decoration where the creature's eyes light up and you turn it on and it's arms move and it makes this terrible Godzilla noise. Doesn't sound like the creature at all, and it's it's really awful. As I got older, more toys and things started coming out, but there was one thing specifically that I was super obsessed with. It was my local skating rink had a Creature from the Black Lagoon pinball machine. I used to own it, had it fixed up, and ended up selling it a few years ago because I had to downsize. And it's kind of one of those things I definitely regret. Another one of the things I ended up having to sell, which sucks because it's if you go halvesies on something and you want to buy the other half of it from someone, they should sell it to you. But they decided no, if I can't have it, you can't have it. So I had a Mark Alfrey creature, and it was a full-size sculpture, replica of the Creature from the Black Lagoon made of resin, just all gray. He made a handful of these, and they were pretty expensive. I found mine secondhand because at the time that they came out, there was no way in hell that I could afford it. I think his castings were $5,000, and I got it for a really good price, and had to let it go. I didn't have to let it go. They let it go. Came home, it was gone. So I finally found it again, so I'm really excited. Not only did I find it, but it is in pristine condition, completely repaired, fully painted, and it's on its way here. I'm gonna open it now, get some power tools, and unbox it and show you guys what I got. I finally have my full-size creature 1x1 scale again, which I'm really excited. To really appreciate Milicent Patrick's work and her abilities as an artist, and Chris's amazing sculpting skills. I know that this was sculpted by Mark, but it's still the closest you can get to the real thing that anyone's ever made to date. So yeah, I'm really excited to have this be a part of my collection. I have something that's really crazy in my collection, and there's only 3 of them in the entire world. There's a big collector who posted this privately in a group that I'm in for sale, and I scrambled and contacted him right away. So I have an original casting pull from the Creature from the Black Lagoon mold from the actual movie. This is not the Don Post creature mask. This is from the authentic mold from the film that disappeared in the early 60s. No one knows where it is. No one knows if it still survived. I know that Steve Wang, who's one of my favorite sculptors, has one, and then a collector in Philadelphia, I've told, has the other. It has the original paint job that's been painted on it, whoever pulled it. I believe that before I owned it was with a special effects makeup artist, like an old school artist who unfortunately passed away, and that's how I acquired it. I heard some talk that it might have been in Bob Burns' possession at some point, as a lot of rare things tend to be. I only got little tidbits of information about it, but surprisingly, it's still really soft and malleable. It hasn't gotten really hard, which tends to happen with foam latex that's stored for too long. It can get really hard and crunchy, and then it starts to disintegrate. I have to get it restored, and a custom case built for it, so it's gonna be really expensive. It's probably gonna cost more than it did to buy it, but it's just what you gotta do sometimes. I have a favorite scene that everybody has the same favorite scene. The swimming scene with Julie Adams and the creature. There's something really poetic about it. This is a much darker film to compare it to, but Night of the Hunter, that scene with the mother when she's dead in the water and she's kind of floating, is just so eerie and haunting. But there's something really beautiful about it. And you watch the scene from Creature from the Black Lagoon and you watch them swim, and it's just kind of hauntingly beautiful. There's something really special about it. I think that's why it always stands out to so many people that love that movie. So I think Creatures from the Black Lagoon has inspired a bunch of movies, just in the sense of also artists and sculptors and the monster makers that create the monsters that we have for films now. In the 50s, these movies, you wouldn't see a creature or a monster done to this kind of detail and look this good and really kind of be the center point and stage of the film. If you look at obviously Monster Squad, you wouldn't have that creature with a Creature from the Black Lagoon, but then Steve Wang's sculpting with Predator, the Gremlins, and Gremlins 2 and 1, especially 2, there's a lot of little elements when you look at scale and structure and especially the spinal design on the Gremlins. And then obviously Guillermo del Toro's Shape of Water. He'll tell you that film is 100% influenced by Creature from the Black Lagoon. But I think that there's a non-conforming entity in the creature that's kind of provocative and sexy in a way. When you watch all the old classic horror movies, I always point this out to people that they weren't really horror movies. They're dark gothic romance films.
The Bride of Frankenstein.
And if you really break it all down, you have this other character, this monster, this, disenfranchised person or entity, and it's looking for companionship, to be loved, to be understood, to not be alone. There's all these different emotions that they're trying to have, and most of it's companionship. So when you watch The Creature from the Black Lagoon, for me, when I was a little girl, and I saw his reaction to Julie Adams, I saw his interest in a companionship, and you just see this complete sad breakdown of the story where he's destroyed and hunted down because he's thought of a monster. And I think that's really how The Shape of Water kind of came into play, is probably Guillermo had the same experience that a lot of us did and saw that famous swimming scene and saw so much more there to that story. And what if we explored that between two characters and what would happen in Creature from the Black Lagoon? We never really got into it. I think there was a lot more there than what we saw in the Hollywood film. I don't think I could ever stop collecting the creature, no matter how much I try. Like, I just love it.